education to be recognized anywhere you go. You better have your certificate to show. To enjoy any kind of happiness, knowledge is the key to success. Children go to school and learn well. Otherwise, later on in life, you go catch real hell. Without an education in your head, your whole life will be pure misery. You're better off dead. For there is simply no room in this whole wide world for an uneducated little boy or girl. Don't allow idle companions to lead you astray. To earn tomorrow, you got to learn today. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da. Oh, God. It's your education street. For employment, yes, employment, you must be intelligent. So it's essential, very essential, to have your credentials. Remember, if you're blockheaded like a mule, no one will employ a fool. You will be the last one to be hired, and the very first one to be fired. Children go to school, learn well. Otherwise, later on in life, you go catch real hell. Without an education in your head, your whole life will be pure misery. It's better you're dead. BD, for there is simply no room in this whole wide world for an uneducated little boy or girl. You attest to that, right? Don't follow idle companions, or you will get burned. To earn, you got to learn. See the move? Illiteracy is man's greatest enemy. So it's your duty, yes, your duty, stamp it out completely. Ignorance always impedes progress. Education saves you much distress. So learn as much as you can. This nation's future is in your hands. Children go to school and learn well. Otherwise, later on in life, you go catch real hell. Without an education in your head, your whole life will be pure misery. You're better off dead. For there is simply no room in this whole wide world for an uneducated little boy or girl. Don't allow idle companions to lead you astray. To earn tomorrow, you got to learn today. If I go back. It's a treasure, yes, a treasure beyond any measure. So secure it, just secure it. Don't ever ignore it. I said to fight life's battles, come what may. Education will light up your way. Without it, you'll never, never, never get through. Success or failure, no, it is up to you. Children go to school, otherwise they don't run in life. You go catch. Without an education, your whole life will be pure misery. You better off. For there is simply no room in this whole wide world for an uneducated little boy or girl. Don't allow idle companions to lead you astray. To earn tomorrow, you got to learn today. And a man, a fig and a pig and a... Tell them what you think. Captain, there's a treasure on board. You tie the shoelace good enough. This shoelace, I feel you trying to strip me, you know. This shoes you like. Tie the thing good enough. You want to see me fall down here so you could laugh? Well, according to the education you get when you're small, you will grow up with true ambition and respect for one and all. But in my days in school, they teach me like a fool. They think they teach me I should be a block-headed mule. What they teach me? They tell me pussy has finished its work long ago. And then they say, Salamana Gandhi, born on a Monday, the ass in the lions. Then they say, winking, blinking, and... You know the song? Putty Lucy tail and the alligator fighting to get monkey liver soup and dance. Bedtime stories. Like to put you on the stick. Banana, The poems and lessons they write and send from England impress me. They were trying to cultivate comedians. Comic books make more sense. You notice fictitious without pretense. J.O. Cartridge wanted to keep us in ignorance. We said, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. And then he said, Goosey Goosey yonder. Somebody ball? Ding dong del mama yo. R-I-K-K-I-T-I-K-K-I-T-A-B-I-Ricky-Ticky-Ticky-Ticky-Ticky and down is the man in the round. Cartridge was plenty times more advanced than them scientists. I can't believe that one man could write so much damn foolishness. Aeroplanes and rockets didn't come so soon. Scientists used to make things up in balloon. This time, Cartridge did not make a cow jump over the moon. And then he said, Tom, Tom, the piper's son, stole a pig and away he ran. And once there was a woman who lived in a shoe, She had so many children that she didn't know what to do. Hickory, dock. The mouse ran up the clock. The lion and the mouse, a woman pushing a cow to eat grass on top of her house. And Dan is the man in the van. You remember them days? How I happen to get a little education, my friend. Me I know. All they teach me is about Bear Rabbit and Rumpelstiltskin. They wanted to keep me down indeed. They tried their best but couldn't succeed, you see. My head was down, see, and up to now I can't read. So who the hell care about Peter? Peter was a pumpkin eater. The lily what people dying Gulliver. When I was sick and lay abed, I had 2 pillows at my head. And the goose laid the golden egg. Spider catching fly, Morocco with wings, flapping in the sky. They beat me like a dog alone at in school. If my head was bright, I would not be a damn fool. With Dan is the man in the van. Can a pig dance a jig for a pig? Mr. Mike goes to school on a bike. Little boy stood in his shoes and he wondered. He stood in his shoes and he wondered. Can a pig dance a jig for a pig? Let me hear you. Can a pig dance? Too early.
A mighty sparrow, Slinger Francisco, turned 90 years this past week. 90 years, the mighty sparrow. Still alive, still alive, still alive, still alive and going well. Still alive and going well. The mighty sparrow, Slinger Francisco, giving us 2 memorable numbers there. Of course, education, and Dan is the man in the van. Good evening to you. I know we missed last night, but as I said, it's campaign season, and we are expected to be on the road. We are expected to have internal meetings, so sometimes we will miss some shows, but we are here. We'll try to get in as many shows as we can. Welcome to all of you, wherever you're joining us from, whether it's inside of Guyana or outside of Guyana, North America, the rest of the Caribbean, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to tonight's edition of Politics 101. It's Thursday night, so we're winding down. We're still basking in the sunlight, as they would say, after last weekend's launch. That's what's in the news. The PPP, of course, is going to do their launch on Sunday, and then on Monday we will have the nomination day. Nomination day is on Monday, so that's the next big event. We'll skip all the stuff that is going on. But welcome wherever you're joining us from. It's election season. And of course, it's very serious. And regardless of what one is doing, one must take elections very seriously. It's not a joke. People literally give their blood, their lives, sacrifice for the right to vote. It didn't come easy. It didn't come easy. And so we have to take it seriously. I hear some young people say they're not voting and so on. We always have to contend with that. But we have to continue to hammer away to our people, regardless of which party you support. The right to vote is sacred. The right to vote is sacred. So it's election season. It's not a time to sit out. It's a time to sit in. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, my sister Linda Campbell from Buxton. Good evening to all of you. Tonight we have some business to take care of, but we'll talk about some things. We are formally launching the WPA campaign fund tonight, and we are, of course, raising funds the old-fashioned way, small donations. We do not have a big donor. We have to contribute to the campaign. And so you all know the numbers, the information there, the Cash App, the Zelle, the MMG, and all of that. We are formally tonight launching the WPA campaign fund. Please contribute. Please contribute. Whether it's $1, $25, $50, $75, $100, more than that. We are raising funds the old-fashioned way in order to contribute. These days, it's not like the old-time days, you run a political campaign, an election campaign without very much funds. These days, everything you have to pay for. So please contribute to the WPA campaign fund. We are part of the APNU team, but each party, as you know, would have to bring something, carry something to the table. And we in the WPA, we are part of the APNU campaign. We'll be speaking at public meetings, but we will also be doing our what we call supplementary, complementary campaign, holding public meetings as WPA in support of the APNU team. So we have to get around. There are things that you may not get the chance to elaborate on an APNU platform because there are many parties and partners. But we would be able at a WPA meeting to really speak more in depth about some of the issues. As I said, elections campaigns have changed. And so we have to contribute. WPA, as we may have mentioned here in the program, we have our own manifesto, and we have made that manifesto available to the APNU. And I think the manifesto committee is trying to merge, or I don't know if merge is the right word, but suffice to say that we have a WPA manifesto because we feel that every party, every party must have a manifesto. I know the PPP has its manifesto, the APNU, like I said, has its manifesto, the AFC has its manifesto, and the WPA does have a manifesto. One has to be serious because a manifesto is about the policies that you adumbrate and the policies that you are going to campaign on. And we are very serious about policies. And so we did our own manifesto, which we will make available to the public at some point. But that manifesto would be combined, merged, integrated, whatever the term is, into the larger APNU manifesto. So let's give a shout out to the WPA, with some people past, don't think it's a serious political party, but serious political parties do serious things, and we have created, done our own manifesto. We're working on it for the last year. As I said, we are going to have our complementary, supplementary public meeting campaign alongside the APNU campaign. We'll be on the APNU platform, but we will also, where possible, have WPA meetings, which in a sense is supporting the APNU platform. Of course, this platform, Politics 101, would be available to the campaign. Our sister program, the Guyanese Morning Time, Brother Kedaki, that platform would be available to the campaign. So the WPA would be on the road with public meetings. We'll make our 2 social media platforms available to the campaign. We have done a manifesto. So this business about, people say, well, is what the small parties bring to the table, or what WPA bring to the table. I just want to say, we are bringing to the table full complement of public meetings, a manifesto, 2 social media platforms, and in other areas. And so we want you to contribute to the WPA's campaign fund, because people have a right to ask what you bring to the table. I don't like it, but people ask it, and I think parties have to answer, and we are answering, right? We have 2 social media platforms which are available to the APNU campaign. We are going to be on the road as part of the APNU public meeting team. We are also going to be on the road as a WPA campaign. We're doing our own road campaign, complementing, supplementing the APNU campaign. As I said, we have produced a manifesto which the 2 sides, are pulling together. So please contribute to the WPA's campaign fund, because we, public meetings, all these things, as you know, have a cost. When they told me what was the cost of the launch on Sunday, it was unbelievable. These things do cost money. So please contribute to the WPA campaign fund. The ways and means. Those of you in Canada, I will be making available very shortly where you can send your contribution to, because I know in Canada they don't use Cash App and Zelle. Those are American things. And some of my classmates have volunteered to be the repository for campaign contributions to the WPA. I will be making that information available by tomorrow night. So have no fear if you're in Canada. If you are in Europe, in England, I know that's an issue too, and persons have been utilizing ways of getting contributions to us. I will make that information available also in short order. In Guyana, of course, it's the MMG, or you can drop in at the WPA office in Georgetown at New Garden and the Naira Streets and drop off your contribution there. The office is open every day. If you're in the East Coast, I'm in Buxton, not very difficult to find. On the railway embankment, you can drop off contributions there. Some people have already made their contribution. So we are, of course, making it easier for people to get their contributions to us. Some of you will be seeing us at public meetings, so we'll work it out. But suffice to say that those who've asked the question, what small parties bring to the table when we are part of a coalition, as I have pointed out here tonight, that we were always organizing as if we were going to an election on our own, our manifesto, our public meeting schedule across the coast. We most likely will not get into the interior unless we have a really big injection of funds, because, to get into the interior, but certainly along the coast, we'll be holding public meetings in addition to the APNU meetings. And of course, we have produced a manifesto. Good evening to all of you, and welcome to Politics 101. We are in the election season, and as I said, elections are serious, and I want us to take these elections very, very seriously. Politics is about who governs. Who governs? Unfortunately, we have a political system where the party that gets the most votes governs. I would prefer it not to be like that. I would prefer not a winner-take-all, but a government that is broad-based, and that whoever you vote for would be part of that broad government. We haven't gotten there yet. So we have to deal with the winner-take-all system. And so therefore, one has to be very careful about how one uses one vote. As you would have noticed at the launch on Sunday night, I raised the theme, do not waste your vote. Do not waste your vote. Do not waste your vote. Do not split your vote. Now, we have the governing party, the PPP. I think the PPP has made it very clear to its constituency not to split its vote. And in many regards, the PPP has sealed off that constituency as much as it can. I noticed that Mohammed is going into that constituency. I imagine the APNU will make some attempts to go into that constituency. But I think the PPP is very clear that it is going to defend its territory. As far as the traditional base of this now opposition, that base has become fair game for everybody. Everybody's trying to get some votes from among the traditional base of the opposition. I mean, they're African Guyanese. I think all parties have decided that their votes that are up for grabs in that constituency. I have been, in the last 5 years, making it very clear where I stand. I reject the notion that in Guyana crossover votes win you an election. Nothing in the data shows that. Nothing in our history shows that. And so I'm very clear in my mind, the WPA is very clear, that you win an election first and foremost by maximizing your base. And that is why I have spent a lot of time mobilizing in the African Guyanese community using this program, mostly to mobilize African Guyanese. I've been called a racist for that, only in Guyana, I am very clear in my mind. I know what's the definition of racism because I teach it, I've studied it, but yet I'm called a racist. I am very careful not to project the notion of racial superiority. In fact, I fight against that. It's a historical fight against racial superiority because the race from which I come has been a victim of racial superiority. Slavery was about racial superiority. And so I fight against racial superiority. But for doing that, you're called racist. And so, as I said, I've been mobilizing African Guyanese for the last 5 years, partly because I think African Guyanese have lost our way culturally. And so I felt that one needed to inject some cultural nourishment. And I think a lot of the other parties that are not grounded in the African Guyanese community, they are taking advantage of the fact that African Guyanese have culturally lost their way. Well, not all of us, but, a critical mass of us. Because when you lose your way culturally, you then lose your way economically and politically. And that is why I spend a lot of time talking about African culture. I've been called a racist for it, but, that's what it is. And so I think we have lost our way culturally. We have made some strides in the last 5 years because some of us have taken it upon ourselves to inject a level of cultural consciousness in the African Guyanese community. Not for African Guyanese to lord it over other races, or not for African Guyanese to be superior to other races. I do not believe that African Guyanese are superior to any other race. I believe in racial equality. And so we have been doing that mobilization. And I think it has paid off. Everywhere I go, people stop me, not always to talk about my politics and the political work, but African Guyanese to stop me to thank me for the cultural work that I have been doing on this program, injecting a level of cultural consciousness in people. I've never, ever said to African Guyanese, you are better than other races. I have never, ever put down other races. Some stupid people who are going to hear from me in some other forums, if I criticize an Indian politician, they say I'm bashing Indian people. But I also criticize African politicians, some of whom are my friends. What you call that? So they attempted to call that racism. And the ERC said they were investigating me because I was critical of African leaders who I felt were buying votes in the African Guyanese community. And some stupid people call that racism and write to the AFC, the ERC. The ERC, of course, I hope knows better. If you're critical, I'm critical of all politicians, whether they're black, brown, white. If I feel that they're wrong, I say they're wrong. Yet, people say, David Hines is a racist, he don't like Indian people. I have never in my political life say negative things about Indian people. Never. It wouldn't occur to me. That's not my ideological outlook. Yet, if you talk to the average Indian, say, David, I don't like Indian people. I suppose because I say I like African, that is then taken to mean I don't like other races. Well, I cannot I can't do anything about people's ignorance. Some of it is willful ignorance because I think some people know better. Some people know better, right? Freddie Kissoon accuses me of racist demagoguery. I want Freddie to remember that at one time he said Jack Dio was an ideological racist and Jack Dio took him to court. And he settled with Jack Dio. He settled with Jack Dio. I remember giving evidence, expert evidence, because Jack Dio accused him, Freddie Kissoon, of maliciousness. And I went to his defense as an expert witness. Freddie today calls me a racist demagogue. Freddie will have to explain in forums that he may not expect. He will have to give evidence that I'm a racist demagogue. I think the other day he said that I bash Indian people. He will have to explain that. He will have to give evidence of that. He said another time, I think 2 or 3 days ago, that I say racist things against Indian people. Freddie Kissoon, I'm serving him public notice that I'm taking note of those things. He has to start putting his evidence together. I don't know where he'll get it from. But the larger point I am making here is that we recognize that African people were culturally in bad shape. And we felt that we needed to give an injection of cultural consciousness. People call it racial consciousness, that's their business. All right? You don't go through 400 years of enslavement and come out of it unscathed. I think ever so often, Black people, African people, have to be reminded of their identity. Slavery messed with Black people identity. And if you look at all the racial groups, African people all over the world are the ones with the most organizations, because we constantly have to organize to repair, a lot of repairing to do. People tell me, young Black kids are, I'm going to vote for this body, I'm going to vote for that body, I'm voting for this body. And that they're bereft, according to a lot of people, of a sense of identity. No, I'm not saying that Africans must vote for Africans. That's a law. Or Indians must vote for Indians. Or Amerindians must vote for Amerindians as a law. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, in a country where ethnic groups historically have voted along ethnic lines, if you of one ethnic group are sharing your vote around, while other ethnic groups are voting in bloc, in a winner-take-all system, you are not likely to see the party that looks like you ethnically in office. You're not likely to see it. Every poll that I have seen, every election that I have known, Indian Guyanese, for the most part, tend to vote en bloc for the PPP. There have been some small breakaway in the time of the United Force, the Indian elite, Georgetown elite, a small fraction of them voted for the UF. And what is not well known is that in 1964 and I think also in 1961, the PPP did not contest in the Georgetown constituencies and the hinterland constituencies that the UF was strong in. So in a sense, the PPP did not split the Indian vote against the PNC in 61 and 64. They didn't contest in the Georgetown constituencies that the UF was strong in and in the hinterland constituencies. I know that for sure in 1964 and also in 1961. And so the PPP didn't want to split the Indian vote so that the PNC could win those constituencies. So in effect, what they did was to give their Indian Guyanese the wink, go vote for the UF, which some of them, a lot of them did, to ensure that the UF won some constituency in 1961 and 1964, right? In 2006, African Guyanese, some of them again, voted for the AFC because the AFC was seen. It had an African Guyanese leader who was a former PNC member, Raphael Truckman, who was the presidential candidate of the AFC. And so African Guyanese felt comfortable voting for the AFC. And the AFC, the PNC got its lowest result in 2006, 34%. And the AFC got 10% of the vote. In those days, the PNC used to get about 44, 45% of the vote. So when you added the AFC vote and the PNC vote, you saw that African Guyanese split their votes, some to the AFC, some to the PNC at that time. With the formation of the APNU in 2011, the PNC APNU got about 44% of the vote, which means that they recaptured the vote that had gone to the AFC. At the 2011 election, the AFC had an Indian Guyanese presidential candidate, 2011-2015. And we saw a small fraction of Indo-Guyanese voting for the AFC in 2011 and 2015. And so we had that small breakaway from the PPP. And as you notice, the PPP lost the 2011 election, although they won the presidency, and they lost the 2015 election. The PNC in 2006 got its lowest total. So insofar as people cross over, they don't go from PNC to PPP or PPP to PNC. They support a party in the middle. In the 1970s, the WPA, and the 1980s, the WPA got support from the Indian Guyanese community, support from the African Guyanese community. Neither of those groups went across from PPP to PNC, from PNC to PPP. They stuck with the WP in the middle. So every now and again, we saw electorally and non-electorally that our ethnic groups would move to a small party in the middle. So there's no big crossover from the big party to the another big party. All right? And our position is that it's not going to happen in 2025. The PPP tried to give us the impression that African Guyanese were moving to them in droves. And a lot of people got scared about it because they knew the PPP had a lot of money and they were going into the communities to buy votes. Well, now we know that that was a myth. That was a myth, right? Mohammed goes into the African Guyanese community and he gets a better look in. Again, I say a look in because I don't know that a look in is going to translate into votes. And the people who are talking, they're cussing the PPP. So the PPP thing about getting big African Guyanese votes is not materializing. It's not materializing. All right? So, and well, the APNU/PNC has never said that it will get any big crossover votes from the Indian Guyanese. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying that small numbers of African Guyanese would vote for the PPP. Some of them are motivated by the little small freck that they're getting. And there are also numbers of Indian Guyanese who are going to vote APNU. Small numbers, but not big crossover. All right? So, in a situation where one big party is banking on its base to get it to power, you see what the PPP is doing to Mohammed? As soon as, because they see Mohammed as a threat to the Indian vote. And they're not taking any chances. They're making it very difficult for Mohammed. They're shouting he down, cussing he down. You see the thuggery, PPP thuggery. They're defending their territory. They're doing everything to discredit Mohammed in the Indian Guyanese community. They're defending their territory. They're saying to Indian people, don't split your vote. Don't waste your vote. If you vote for Mohammed, you're voting for someone who is sanctioned and then blah, 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 and so on. Now, if the other side is holding its base together, what is wrong with the other side, the next side, to hold its base together? Look at the amount of cuss I get because I said that we are going to, if the APNU is going to win the election, it has to win it first and foremost with its base. It has to increase the turnout in the African Guyanese community. They all cost me. Ravi Def cost me. All of them. PPP cost me. Jack Dio cost me. And they're all saying the African Guyanese vote is premium because they all want to win and they want to buy some African Guyanese vote. So we have to say to African Guyanese that you may be attracted to another party. It's human to be. But you have to ask yourself, will your interests, your class interests, your community interests, your ethnic interests, will those three interests be served by a party that is not grounded in your community. A young man, well, not a young man, one of my schoolmates was talking to me here this afternoon. And he said, Dr. Hines, look between Buxton and BV. And he said, you have businesses, all kinds of businesses. If you want to buy certain things, you can't get them in Buxton. You have to go into one of the Indo-Guyanese communities to get it. He said there are banks in those communities. So people don't have to leave those communities to go to Georgetown to get things. And he said, but if you look at BV and you look at Buxton, you don't have the requisite businesses there. You don't have any bank in those communities. And the point he was making to me is Indian people ask for institutions. They pressure the PPP to create institutions, business institutions, banks. Whereas the African Guyanese communities, when the PPP comes in, it offers them, a $2 million to go and clean trench. It offers them a little concrete road. It doesn't say to them, I'm bringing a bank in Buxton, or I'm bringing a certain level of business in Buxton so that a bank would want to open a branch in Buxton. It doesn't say that to them. It offers them, a $2 million contract to go and clean road and clean trench and so on. And unfortunately, some of African Guyanese people are happy with that. Whereas if you look in the communities, Indian Guyanese communities, you are seeing institutions that serve the community, not the individual. Of course, the individual is being served, but the community is being served. As you go into the African Guyanese community, PPP doesn't come there and say, look, I want to develop institutions here in these communities. The point I'm making is that one doesn't expect the PPP to do that. The PPP knows where the bulk of its votes come from. And whatever is trickle down, it gives most of that trickle down where its votes is coming from. So if African Guyanese want the same kind of community services, institutional services, then they will have to look to their party to do it. Now, one can make an argument that the last time the APNU was in office, it did not do as much as the support base wanted. Not that it didn't do anything, it did some things. But the support base feels that it didn't do enough. And so there is an incentive, brothers and sisters, not to split the vote. Now we have parties that are headed by people who were once in the APNU, AFC, and some of our people like those people. They like them. Some people tell me, look, I like Simona Bruns. I like Amanza. I like Nigel Hughes. I like Apostle London. The question we have to ask is whether if we share our votes around to each of those leaders, whether we can win in the system that we have. This is a system. If we had a system where parties can come together after the election, then you could go and vote for all the opposition parties, and at the end of the election, they come together and they form a coalition government. But our constitution does not allow for post-election coalitions. That is why coalition had to be before the elections. We have a coalition, but we have some people who we admire who are out of the coalition. The question is, if African Guyanese were to give PPP a little bit, give Mohammed a little bit, give, Amanza a little bit, give Simone a little bit, give EFC a little bit, give the APNU most, while our Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters give the bulk to the PPP. Who wins at the end? Who wins at the end? No, we have to be pragmatic, unfortunately. We have to be pragmatic. Now, I do not want to deny people or say to people, you have to vote this way. People should have the right to cast their votes to the party that they feel more comfortable with under normal circumstances. You should have that right. But if your objective is to remove the PPP, then there is a conflict between your right and your objective. There's a conflict between your right. I would not want to deny anybody the right to vote for a party that they identify with. Whether it's PPP, T. Mohammed, Simona, Amanza, the AFC, Barcelona. People must have a right to go cast your vote for whoever you want to. And the same thing for Indian Guyanese, they should have that right to cast their vote for whichever party. So I do not want to say to people, but what is your objective? If your objective is that the PPP is destroying Guyana, and that if the PPP gets back into office, the racial imbalance, the class imbalance would continue. People stop me on the road with tears in their eyes to tell me, Dr. Hines, 5 more years of these people be dead in this country, with tears in their eyes. Old people, young people. So if your objective is to prevent the avalanche in the next 5 years, but your right is to vote for whoever you want to vote, and your objective is colliding with your right, you have to make a choice. I know the choice I will make. And that is why the WPA very early said we are going to be part of a coalition. Because our objective is to remove the dangerous PPP. And PPP is dangerous to Guyana. Very dangerous. You all know it. We have been talking about it for the last 5 years. For some of us, we've been talking about it for the last 33 years. Because we knew that the objective is to get rid of the dangerous PPP from office, we felt that the most effective way of doing so is the broadest coalition. And so we put that objective first rather than the party first. And we put the party first, we would have been contesting as WPA. But how would that help with the objective of defeating the PPP? And so I think we made the correct choice. I pointed out at the beginning of the program, WPA wrote a manifesto. We are going to mount our own public meetings across the country supporting the APNU platform. We have 2 social media platforms, this platform, we're going to use them. So I think we could have contested on our own and win a couple of seats. But what winning a couple of seats do? It would split up our votes and allow the PPP back in office. And so therefore we made that choice very early. I'm not being critical here. I'm not being critical here of other parties. Other parties have a right to make their choices, but I'm explaining WPA. We felt that we could have done and gone our own, win a couple of seats, 2, 3, 4 seats, whatever the case may be. Because look at the parties that have written manifestos: PPP, PNC, AFC, WPA. Real parties, right? Real parties, old parties. The PPP being there from 1950, the PNC from 1955, 57, depending on thing. The WPA from 1974, the AFC from 2006. They are all seasoned parties. That's why they could write a manifesto. A manifesto is about your policies and your ideas. I am not knocking the other parties. I'm just saying that they are senior parties. They are experienced parties that do the things that senior parties and experienced parties do. That is why only 4 parties wrote manifestos. 2 of them are in the APNU. So the APNU, in effect, got 2 manifestos, which we are folding together. Holding public meetings around the country. We have social media platforms. We could have said, let us go out there and prove that the WPA can win seats. It would have made the WPA look good, but the PPP would be back in office. You win an election by 1 seat. So even if the WPA were to go there win 1 seat, that 1 seat could have been the difference between the PPP back in office and the APNU returning to office. So we made it very clear from early. And that is why we stuck with the coalition. And while I'm on this coalition business, look, every party in the coalition has to negotiate in any coalition what is it we bring to the coalition and what is it we deserve in a coalition. And I can say that the WPA over the last year has been meeting and talking with the PNC/APNU. What have we been talking about? We've been talking about joint policies. We have been talking about strategy, joint strategy. What is our strategy to remove the PPP? And lastly, that were we to get into government, what would be the WPA's contribution to that government? And we very quietly worked out, if we win, what is expected of the WPA? People, to call it negotiations. You got to talk about ministries and all those things. But note, I'm not talking about what ministry. I'm talking about what our contribution to the government will be. And we very quietly worked that out. We worked out an MOU. That MOU has been signed by the leaders of the PNC and the WPA without fanfare. No 65, 35, 45, 55, and so on. Because what we did is that we said policies, strategy, and contribution. And very quietly. This is the first time I'm saying it. And I don't think Norton has said it. I'm taking the liberty of saying it. We have worked out a memorandum of understanding. Signed it. Without all the big fanfare in the media of 45, 55, and 65. I'm not at liberty to say what is in the MOU. But so I'm saying political parties with the same objective could work those things out quietly. Once you're committed, and our party is committed to coalition, it doesn't mean that we will lie down and allow people to walk all over us. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that if you're committed to something, you are prepared to make the necessary compromise to make the thing work. And coalition is a compromise. A marriage is a compromise. A union is a compromise. You have to make compromises. The great United States, when they were putting that country together, there are two plans. Two plans. A plan from the big states and a plan from the small state called the New Jersey Plan. And they were able to merge those two plans and create a country because they compromised. The small states compromised with the big states. That is why they have two houses. The Senate, with equal representation, whether you're small, Delaware, New Jersey, or whether you're big, Pennsylvania, New York, they compromise. So the Senate is where the small states have an advantage. And then the House of Representatives is based on population size, where the big states have an advantage. Compromise. Coalition is about compromise. And again, I'm not knocking other parties. I'm saying that that is how the WPA approached it. We approach it in the spirit of compromise. And so I'm saying, when you go to cast that vote, sisters and brothers, you have to answer the question, am I voting my objective, which is to rid the country of the PPP juggernaut, the PPP which is prepared to sink this country to hold itself in power? Or you are going to vote your sentiments. I like X, I like Y, I like Z. And so I'm going to vote for who I like, as opposed to the objective that we all have. You have to make that choice. And I'm saying I have made that choice. My party has made that choice. We are voting for the larger objective of saving the collective from the hammer and the axe of the PPP. We would have loved, as I said, as WPA, to go into the election and satisfy ourselves that we could win 2 seats or 3 seats. But satisfy ourselves while people are thrown under the bus. You know, if I could do anything within reason to get Sister Simona, you all know I feel strongly about Sister Simona. I always say when I go into war, there are two people, two women I would want at my side. That's Simona and Coretta McDonald. I have a soft spot for Simona. I love Simona. So I'm not knocking Simona. If I could do anything to bring Simona into the APNU coalition. I love Amanza. You all remember when Amanza came out, when I started this program, she was a regular. I made it very clear. I love that sister. And if I could do anything to get that sister in the coalition, I would do it. I would put those two sisters in front of me. I would step back. They tease me. Dr. Hines, you have a soft spot for Nigerians, and I do. I do have a soft spot for Nigeria. I think Nigeria's made tremendous contribution to holding the line against the PPP in the last 5 years. I think Nigeria stuck its neck out in places that not many middle-class people would do. Nigeria talked about the racial oppression of Africans. The black middle class shy away from that. So we owe a debt to Nigeria. You all know how I feel about Apostle London. If I could do anything to get those brethren and sisterin into the coalition, I would. Ultimately, they've made their decisions, and I have to respect it. And I wouldn't sit here and say to whoever wants to vote for them, don't vote for them. Well, all I can say, are your political sentiments colliding with the political objective? And that objective is to rid the country of the PPP. Rid the country of the PPP. And you only have one vote. You know, there is this theory that we should give each citizen 2 votes. Sister, oh God, she's dead now. She was a lawyer. And she was nominated by Bill Clinton. And he had to withdraw nomination because the Republicans hammered her view. Her name is going to come back to me. But if my bright people here remember, she died a couple of years ago. Her father was Jamaican. But she had come up with this suggestion of giving a citizen 2 votes. So your first vote is for the first party of your choice. And your second vote is for the second. Lanny Ganair. There we go. And thank you, Michael. Senior moment, you know. But I could depend on this audience. Sister Lanny Ganair, right? She had come up with that thing. And that was one of the reasons that the Republicans went after her, that she wants to dilute democracy and so on. But, you know, if we had 2 votes, I would say give you first vote for the APNU, and then you can give your second vote to Simona. Some of y'all like Mohammed, you know, whoever you want to give it to. But you have 1 vote. 1 vote, comrades, 1 vote. You can't split it in half. That's why I use the term split. And then I use the term waste. Because if you If your vote is not going to contribute to removing the PPP, or if your vote is going to contribute to re-electing the PPP, then you are wasting your vote as far as the objective is concerned. Because again, it's the objective. If the objective is not to remove the PPP, then you're not wasting your vote. But if your objective, you want to get rid of the PPP, in a situation where the Indian Guyanese vote, I think, is going to remain largely intact. I think Mohammed is making a big play in the Indian Guyanese community. But I think the PPP is showing us that they're not making it easy for him. So I think in the final analysis, the move from the Indian Guyanese community is going to be minuscule, which means that the PPP is holding its support base together, which carries them to about 42 or 43%. They are depending on votes from Amerindians and Africans, in particular Africans, because I think their 43, 44% include the Amerindian vote. And they're looking now for about 8% more votes. And that's why the African Guyanese community becomes important. And you can either give them that 8% by going and vote for them. I don't think a lot of that will happen. Or by splitting up your vote, or by staying home. If you stay home, it's like giving the PPP your vote. If you split up your vote, it has the same effect. Again, I am not saying do not vote for who you like. If your objective is just your sentiments, fine. Vote for who you want to vote for. If your objective is to remove the PPP, consider not splitting your vote or wasting your vote. It's my message. It's my message. It's not my place to tell anybody you can't vote for whoever you want to vote for. It's not my place. That's not my place. But I am just saying, what is your objective? So for those of you who are undecided, I hope that tonight we have given you something to think about. If you're just joining us, we are launching tonight, we have launched the WPA Campaign Fund, and we're asking you to give, to contribute. $25, $50, $75, $100. Those are the small to medium donations. Some of you may get $10 or $1 or more than $100. Please do contribute. As I said, we would be part of the APNU campaign going around the country speaking, but we're also going to have our complement of WPA meetings. We have to pay for them. There are things that when you're on an APNU platform, you may have 5, 6 speakers, 4 speakers. You don't get to flesh out some things. So WPA, on our meeting, at our meetings, we will flesh out. So we are supplementing the APNU platform. So it's like 2 sets of APNU meeting. The APNU meeting and the WPA meeting, APNU meeting. And so we are doing that. We have produced a manifesto. We are making these platforms available to all APNU leaders and campaign. You're going to see a lot of APNU leaders here on this program on Guyanese Morning Time. So we're asking you to contribute to our campaign fund. We do not have any big donors. I can tell you that upfront. We don't have anybody who's going to give us $2 million, $3 million. We don't have that. I hope we can. If there's anybody out there, please, you know. Um, so we are depending on small donations, small to medium donations, as we've always done. So please contribute. You know, as I said, look, this we the political world is not ideal. There are people I know who favor me, my politics as an individual, and you're free to do that. You may not necessarily favor WPA. You may like me as your classmate, as you know, may like my black consciousness or whatever, right? Please contribute. If you like us as a collective WPA, please contribute. And not just contribute funds, but contribute your vote. One of the things about the coalition, that if your vote is for the WPA, it's a vote for the APNU. And we have to think about it that way. We have to think about the family, the vote of the family. One gentleman stopped me yesterday at the line top to tell me that he has a family, 4 children, he and his wife. He got 2 daughters and 2 sons. And he said he got 6 votes. And 3 votes is for Norton and 3 votes for me. He said the males in the family are voting for Norton, and the females in the family voting for me. And he just wanted to know that the APNU got 6 votes. There's division in the family, but it's going to the same place. Again, you know, the question we ask at previous election, what WPA bring to the table, what AFC bring to, what small parties bring to the table. There is a lot that all parties bring to the table, you know, and this is one instance where a family is an APNU family, but there's division in the family. But at the end, we got 6 votes from that thing. So, sisters and brothers, think very seriously, and please speak to young people especially. Although, when you look at the Square of the Revolution on Sunday, more than half of that crowd was young people, which I think scared the other side. Because they're going after young people who tend to be, not to know, a lot of young people, but not a lot. I understand some young people are saying they're voting for Mohammed. You have to ask yourself, and I can understand why some young people like Mohammed. I can understand. But you have to ask, liking Mohammed and removing the PPP from office and putting in place a government that's going to look after your interests, what is it? Are you going to just go because you put your vote because you like Mohammed? Or are you going to put your vote to remove the PPP and get a government there that is likely to look after your interests? I made the pledge at the Square of the Revolution on Sunday night that I'm not playing games this time around. That we are not going to forget people. I have heard stories that when people got into office, you couldn't get them on the phone. You go to them for house lot, they push you around. I have heard those stories. I am going to be the enforcer. Not to forget poor people of all races. Not to forget the base who give us our votes. Like how you said, us get on bad something. I'm going to get on bad like that if they put me in the cabinet because I'm going to remind them every day of the promises they made. We cannot separate ourselves from our base. We cannot. We cannot forget our people. I have to live in Buxton and hear people say, you know, the leader come, take we vote, and he never come back and said, tell us thanks. Every day I got to live with that in this village. And I'm not saying that to say that the leader was a bad leader. What I'm saying is that the leader was not conscious that things like that matter and people remember it. You know, one lady came here to see me 2 days ago, and I understand that she had been coming about 3 or 4 times. And my son tells him, I wake up yet, or they're in a meeting or something. And I had to tell him, don't let that happen again. If somebody comes to see me, whatever I am doing, come and tell me somebody see me. Don't send them away and tell them I'm busy or I wake up. You come. Let me decide that. Come and wake me up. And I want to make that an example. All right? And I made that pledge at the square of the revolution. The new politics. A new politics. We are moving forward. We are moving forward. The propaganda is out. I think the PPP has a propaganda that I said that every Guyanese will get $1 million and it's going to be 58% of the 2025 budget. And some of our people have been writing me to say, we have to be careful with our messaging. One of the things we can do is listen to PPP propaganda and make our judgment. The PPP is going to lie on me. I said every Guyanese will benefit. Each Guyanese will benefit. But we will stick to our proposal in the WPA that every family, every household will be given $1 million. PPP said, I said every Guyanese will get $1 million. And some of our people listen to what the PPP say and say, Dr. Hinds has to be careful about what he says. No. Listen to this. Listen to this.
Partnership for National Unity's anti-poverty strategy was laid down Sunday night at the Square of the Revolution. Leader of the Working People's Alliance, Dr. David Hinds, made it clear that Guyanese will be remembered and that the money from oil will go directly to them. Here is more. In a fiery speech at the launch of the Partnership for National Unity campaign at the Square of the Revolution Sunday night, Working People's Alliance co-leader Dr. David Hinds hammered home the point that should the APNU be elected into office after the September 1 general and regional elections, one of the coalition's anti-poverty strategy would be to negotiate acceptable wages and salaries with trade unions.
Once we take power, all the workers of this country, we will sit down with your unions and we will bargain with your unions and ensure that every worker gets a living wage in this country.
Banking on figures that Guyana is expected to produce about 1.5 million barrels of oil per day by 2029 and earn as much as US $10 billion yearly, Dr. Hinds promised that the wealth of the nation will go directly to the people of Guyana under an APNU government.
We will ensure that the oil wealth, a percentage of it comes directly to you all. Not a $100,000 freck.
The political scientist said laws will be enacted to ensure that every single Guyanese benefit from the country's resources, regardless of size, composition, economic circumstance, or location.
We will go to Parliament and we will put it in law that a percentage of the oil money will go to every Guyanese. As you all know, the party to which I belong, from as early as 2018, said that by 2025, each Guyanese could be and will be, every family will be entitled to $1 million Guyanese dollars.
Dr. Hinds also appealed to the thousands that gathered at the Square of the Revolution not to split or waste their vote come September.
So you are there. Every family. Yet I say every individual. I said, if Travis Chase could get it right, and then lying, right? Every individual, each individual will benefit. Because each family, whether it's a family headed by a 16-year-old child or a 50-year-old person, whether that family is a one-person family or a five-person family, each family will benefit. It's there, Travis, get it there. Yet the PPP, for propaganda reasons, is saying, Dr. Hinds is saying that each individual will get $1 million, and that's 58%. And some of our people listen to the PPP and then write in me and saying, be careful your message here. Look, you all cannot fall for the PPP propaganda. The PPP, like any party, is going to try as much as possible to discredit the opposition. They're going to bend the truth. You have to be very careful about where you go for your facts. All right? And that's an instance where the PPP is going to lie. No, I would not encourage the APNU to engage in the same kind of nonsense. I will encourage the APNU to fact check, but not to engage in lying. And that is what the PPP has been doing to me for the last 5 years, lying on me. Lying. You know? But the records do not lie. It's very clear there. I said each individual will benefit, but every family, meaning every household, will be entitled to $1 million. That's been our proposal since 2018. All right? When the PPP gave to each individual the 100,000, we were critical of it. Because if you give to each individual 18 years and over, you have young people who are below 18. Some of them with family of 3 and 4 children, 2 and 3 children. They were left out. If you had said family, household, those people would have been in. And that's why we said family and household. They don't want to hear that. All right? They don't want to hear that. So, comrades, sisters, and brothers, be very careful with PPP propaganda and using it. You know, one man said, well, you know, when Dr. Hinds was talking, I was talking to somebody, so I didn't hear everything he said. But, you know, we can't give $1 million to everybody. Oh, of course, that time didn't say that. All right. So, there we go. All right. I know tomorrow night we're going to be on. I don't think I have any meetings tomorrow night. So we are going to be on tomorrow night. I know Dr. Adams hasn't been on in a long time. Wayne Caesar. I try to put together a big group for tomorrow night. Tonight, as I said, we have launched the WPA Campaign Fund. Please contribute. All the information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen there. Your Zelle, your Cash App, your MMG. Those of you who would like to contribute in Guyana in person, WPA office is at the corner of Anaira and New Garden Streets. It's opened every day. We have staff there. You can go make your contributions there. I am here in Buxton. You can pass, make your contribution here in Buxton. And if you see us at public meetings, public event, you can make your contributions. Please give as liberally as you can, but even if it's $1, $100 Guyanese that you can afford, we welcome it. It's not just the money, but is the spirit behind it. And as I said, those of you who are wavering about your vote, think seriously about your objective of removing the PPP and whether our sentiments are in line with that objective or are not in line with that objective. I love you all, and we continue to serve. We continue to serve. I'll be back tomorrow night with another edition of Politics 101. Stand firm, because victory is at hand. And remember, the struggle is twofold. We are still trying to ensure that rigging does not happen. We are still trying to prevent the PPP from rigging. But we are also moving to win an election. See you all tomorrow.